Some say we are alone in the universe, but what if that belief is exactly what they want us to think? What if the stories of alien empires, secret wars in the stars, and a human resistance forgotten by history, were never fiction at all? Welcome to Galactic Mysteries, where we uncover hidden truths from beyond the stars, and dive deep into the unknown. In today's transmission, you'll witness not just a story, but a spark that changed the galaxy forever. Listen closely. Question everything. And prepare to see humanity as you've never seen it before. High above the gentle curve of the blue-green world called Elaris, there hung a shadow vast, silent, and ancient. It was not of clouds nor of celestial matter, but of purpose. The Oblivion Lance, a dreadnought carved from blackened star metal and secrets lost to time, drifted silently in high orbit, cloaked in a hush deeper than vacuum itself. Within its heart, on the command deck lit by the soft pulse of alien glyphs, stood a figure whose presence seemed to warp the very air around him. He was tall, unnaturally so, and his skin gleamed with a sheen of polished obsidian. This was Supreme Marshal Kael'vor, warlord of the Dominion of Varnok. His eyes, twin embers of pale violet, did not blink as he stared at the planet below. There was no awe, no curiosity, only a cold, patient hunger. Another weak world, he murmured, the words more thought than sound. Ripe for the fold. Behind him, the faint hum of movement. Zeratin, his strategist, stepped forward, smaller in stature, but sharp-eyed, always calculating. She held a crystalline data slab, pulsing with alien light. "They call it Earth," she said softly. "They've only just cracked the atom. No warp travel. No shields. Their world is open to the void." Kael'vor smiled, a curl of thin, sharp lips, devoid of warmth. "Then we descend." When he spoke, it wasn't a command. It was inevitability. Far below, Elaris remained blissfully unaware. But something in the sky shifted, a subtle ripple, a shimmer of dark intent as a sleek shuttle detached from the belly of the Oblivion Lance. Its hull was smooth like volcanic glass, absorbing starlight. Then, with the grace of a falling ghost, it vanished from sight, cloaked in silence and unseen descent toward the cradle of humanity. The shuttle did not scream through the skies. It arrived. One moment, the field outside the city of New Kyoto was empty. The next, it was occupied by something that didn't belong to Earth, or perhaps, didn't belong to this galaxy at all. The air around it shimmered with a strange tension, like static caught in a moment before lightning. From the belly of the black vessel, a ramp extended, hissing softly. Then came Kael'vor, flanked by 20 armored soldiers whose mirrored suits caught the light and twisted it into fear. They moved in perfect silence, forming two rows like living blades. The humans, those nearby, panicked. Some fled, some screamed, some simply froze as their minds attempted to comprehend what their eyes were witnessing. This was not a movie. This was not a drill. But no fire was exchanged. Within hours, Earth responded not with missiles, but with resolve. Armored vehicles formed a perimeter. Drones buzzed overhead. And from the nearest command post came a single transport, unarmed, escorted by no more than protocol. From it stepped a man, General Elias Rand, tall, weathered, his gray uniform marked not by decoration but by responsibility. His face was unreadable, carved from restraint. A translator drone hovered between them, casting soft light. "I am Elias Rand," the human said. "Voice of the Unified Earth Accord." Kael'vor studied him with the same gaze he might use on a strange insect attempting to walk like a god. "You unify quickly," he said, voice low and echoing. "Impressive, for primitives." Then, with sharp precision, he performed a ritualistic bow 30 degrees, left hand to right shoulder. Alien Protocol, elegant and cold. I am Supreme Marshal Kael'vor of the Dominion of Varnok. We command 12,000 systems across 3 galactic arms. Your world now falls under our protection. Serve, and survive. Ren did not blink. His response was calm, yet resolute. We appreciate your interest, he said. But Earth remains free. We do not submit. A silence followed. Heavy. Hanging. Even the wind seemed unsure whether to move. Kael'vor's gaze sharpened like a blade unsheathed. That is not a choice. Comply, or be dismantled. But Ren only nodded once, like a man confirming the terms of a duel. Then you'll have our answer. In 24 hours. As the general turned and walked away, the alien soldiers remained statuesque. The silence was unbroken. Behind Kael'vor, Zeratin whispered. They didn't even flinch. Kael'vor's response was barely a whisper. They don't understand yet. But something in the air had shifted. And the sky, if one looked closely enough, seemed darker than before. Time passed so slowly it was as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Before dawn could touch the other side of the planet Elaris, the Oblivion Lance was still drifting silently in its silent orbit, like a black god watching its prey. Beneath its abyssal black metal hull, thousands of sensors monitored every movement of humanity. But contrary to expectations, humans did not tremble. They don't kneel. They don't beg. They prepare. From below, the geostationary satellite network began to spin. Seemingly innocuous systems, weather stations, telecommunications, navigation quietly shifted positions. Inside major cities, military units moved out of their bases, forming scattered formations, camouflaged like ghosts in the night. Kael'vor watched the screen, his eyes frosted. They are shifting, Zeratin reports. But without direction. They do not understand what they face. Then an unusual signal rang out. A small ship, very small, left the atmosphere, flying toward the Oblivion Lance's position. No weapons. No escort. But carrying strange sweeps, deep, strong, and bold. Zeratin narrowed her eyes, tilted her head, and touched the touch panel. They are scanning frequencies no human should understand. A pause. Then Kael'vor commanded. Destroy it. Make it clean. There was no flash of light. No explosion. Just a silent flash, and the little ship was gone, melting into nothingness as if it had never existed. Zeratin turned away, relieved. But they didn't know that death was being recorded. Broadcast live. Transmitted back to Earth using dozens of backup signals. A few hours later, humanity is no longer the humanity of yesterday. All channels of information, government, press, social media, the undercurrent exploded. The data recording the attack was undeniable. Aliens, killing without warning. And then, they spoke. On every frequency, radio, satellite, military network, the cold face of General Elias Ren appeared. But this time, it was no longer calm. Kael'vor, he said, his voice thundering through the atmosphere. Your act against our unarmed vessel is an act of war? His voice seemed to freeze the space. We now understand the truth of your intentions. And we respond, with everything we have. On the bridge of the Oblivion Lance, no one spoke. Kael'vor just stared at the blue orb, and for the first time, something silently appeared in his eyes. A ray of doubt. On the edge of the Elaris star system, the sky cracked. 30 massive Dominion battleships, the main body of the 7th Fleet, appeared in a storm of light and shadow. Each ship was the size of a city, its hulls engraved with the skulls of vanquished races. Their weapon base contained plasma cannons capable of incinerating entire continents. Leading the formation was the Vortex Rain, flagship of Admiral Jorgon, a pure-blooded warrior, pale gray in complexion, with jawbones as sharp as steel scales. "Enter their system," Jorgon ordered. "Destroy resistance. Leave them enough to serve." The ship passed Jupiter, Mars, unhindered. Space stations were destroyed like insects. An eerie silence fell. No troops, no resistance. Captain Sinvac stood beside him, squinting at the sensor screen. "No fleets, no movement. They are hiding. Or waiting," Jorgon replied. "Let's not disappoint them." The fleet closed in on Earth. All signals were blank, just useless civilian satellites, hovering like mechanical corpses. "Phase 1, the Admiral nodded. And then, from above, beams of brilliant purple energy shot down. Dozens of human military bases were obliterated within minutes. Every single point of light on the map vanished like stardust. Jorgon smiled coldly. So much for their resistance. But little did he know the game had just begun. In the darkness beyond the moon, beyond the asteroid belt, something has moved. And very soon, humanity will respond not with technology, but with something far more terrifying. Adaptation. Night still hung in the far reaches of orbit, where the light of the sun could not reach. The Dominion fleet, spread out like a wall of steel in space, drifted silently around Elaris, absolutely confident in its own strength. No enemies, no warnings. But something is moving in the darkness. First, small flashes of light, faint, of unknown origin, appeared behind the satellite debris. Then, from inside hollow asteroids, from Saturn's atmosphere, and even from dead spots on sensors, hundreds of objects began to appear. They gave off no light. They made no sound. They were human warships, small, misshapen, cobbled together as if from space junk. But they lived and waited. Then, like a soundless wave, they came crashing in. Sinvac's head whipped around as its sensors exploded with hundreds of strange readings. Incoming. Multiple vectors. No identification signatures. Seconds later, the first Dominion battleship exploded. It wasn't torn apart by plasma weapons or energy waves but by physical ballistics. Solid metal. Thick. Terribly fast. Tipped with reversible magnetic fields. Primitive projectiles. Jorgon roared. How did they bypass our shields? But those bullets were precisely engineered to penetrate the protective frequencies of the Dominion energy shield, a seemingly impossible feat. They adapted to our harmonic field, Sinvac whispered. From seconds of footage. The second wave came, small ships that charged, attacked, and disappeared into the darkness. No pattern. No formation. No strategy the Dominion could understand. They are not fighting a war, Jorgon realized. They are rewriting it. On board the flagship Vortex Rain, the lifeblood of the entire fleet, the situation quickly spiraled out of control. A new wave of small ships appeared from behind the moon. But this time, they didn't shoot. They latched on. Hundreds of small compartments, hard as meteorites, small as cockpits, smashed into the mothership's hull and latched on like parasites. There was no explosion. No warning. Then each compartment began to crack, opening up to reveal groups of soldiers in dark gray armor, rough but effective. Humans. Breaches reported on decks 7, 9, 11, 13, an officer shouted. How did they pass through shields? Sinvac looked at the sensor data, his face pale. They tuned their pod vibration to our shield frequency. perfectly matched. Like they knew. Inside the giant ship, spiral corridors were occupied. Lock systems were disabled. People did not break through but passed through, as if they understood every inch of the internal structure. They are disabling weapons. Engine power down. Command relays, cut off. The Dominion engineers were baffled. They couldn't imagine, how could a species that had never set foot outside the solar system reprogram the genetic code for access? How could they simulate the Dominion's biological signals? But they did. And they don't stop. From the security screens, Jorgon and Sinvac could see nothing but human soldiers walking through the Dominion corridors, plugging in analyzers, downloading data, disassembling pieces of technology the Empire had once considered inviolable. Not to steal, but to learn. They are not here to win the battle, Sinvac whispered, almost trembling. They are here to learn how to win the war. A flashing red light. A long warning beep. Then the screen went black. The mothership went silent like an ancient temple drained of its soul. And out there, in the space as black as dried blood, humanity has awakened. 3 days had passed since the surprise attack on Admiral Jorgon's fleet. When Dominion reinforcements reached the Outer Rim, all they found was silence and wreckage. 7 battleships were completely destroyed. 5 more, including the flagship Vortex Rain, drifted helplessly like giant beached fish in a weightless ocean. No distress signal. No call. Only the hollow echoes of defeat. But what was more terrifying was what the scouts found in Vortex Rain. Not only were the systems disabled, there were traces of research. Notes written in human language. Specimens removed with precision. Tactical data, engine schematics, reboot mechanisms, everything had been copied. They didn't come to destroy. They came to understand, to adapt, to restructure the war in ways Dominion had never faced. At the Dominion's high intelligence headquarters, signals from far away began pouring in. Not reports of victory but uprising. The planet Tarak 4, once one of the most submissive colonies, has rebelled. The Velgorod system, home to a species once forced into biological slavery, is now using Dominion technology to reclaim the skies. Humans gave them more than weapons, an intelligence officer exclaimed. They gave them permission. In the Imperial Command Center, in a crescent-shaped hall suspended in space, the Dominion generals gathered. An eerie silence fell over the room. No one dared to interrupt as Director of Intelligence Varen Thursday brought up his slideshow. In 3-dimensional space, images are shown. A wounded soldier from a Dominion unit, being treated by the very people he was trained to destroy. A captured pilot, sitting in the middle of a human prison camp, is telling a long talk about family and choice. They don't conquer with fear, Varen Thursday said. They conquer with questioning. He stopped. The generals looked at each other, not understanding. They do not destroy our order by force. They unravel it, with ideas. A graph appears, an analysis of human tactical behavior. Every battle, whether won or lost, is reconstructed. New tactics are created after each defeat, without repeating any pattern. Our algorithms cannot predict them, a war engineer admitted. Because their commanders don't follow logic. They follow instinct. And they are willing to fail, over and over, until something works. In the tense atmosphere, only one sentence ended the report. They are not here to replace us. They are here to change the rules of existence. No one said anything. But deep in each person's eyes, there was something that Dominion was unfamiliar with, fear, real. The sky's overthrown world Varnaxis, the heart of the Dominion Empire, darkened on an afternoon without sunset. From the cosmic horizon, thousands of dim lights appeared like sleepwalkers. They were not meteors. They were not beacons. They were human warships of all kinds, of all shapes, not uniform, not perfect, but determined to survive. They do not come alone. With them come races that were once dominated, once enslaved, once the unheard screams in the darkness of the Empire. Now they come as allies, not tools. The Dominion's strategic command center was in chaos. Generals argued. Some wanted to activate the planetary weapons, wiping out the enemy entirely. Some wanted to retreat to the outer reaches. But when the news came that half the galaxy was lost, all rationality fell apart. Finally, a message comes through the open frequency. We request a meeting. No conditions. No threats. Only dialogue. No one believed it. A man with a sword around his neck asked for a dialogue? But they came. A small, rustic boat, landing on the white stone platform before the dark palace. No guards. No weapons on display. Leading the charge was Commander Miles Tren, a calm man whose hair had turned gray from 3 years of relentless war. He entered, knifeless in his eyes and swordless in his hands, and bowed slightly to Emperor Xiron Vex, who had ruled the Empire for 6 decades with an iron fist and a cold heart. You stand in the heart of power, Xiron said, his voice as heavy as ancient stone. Why do you not take it? Miles did not smile. He just replied quietly. Because those who seek to rule, often should not. No threats. No demands. Just an invitation. From a lowly being, to an empire that seemed invincible. We offer a new path. Shared rule. Self-determination. A council of worlds, not thrones of conquest. Xiron looked into the eyes of the human before him and he saw time. Something he himself no longer had, belief in what never existed. And so, the day that should have been the end of the world, became the beginning. 10 years later. The Palace of Varnaxis is no longer a war command center. It has become the headquarters of the Galactic Council, where representatives of over 300 races gather to shape the future together. People still call it the Great Shift. Not everyone accepted. Some of the old forces resisted. Some generals went into the darkness, trying to restore so-called order. But the light had spread too far, and no one could extinguish the spark that had ignited the souls of the stars. Emperor Xiron, now old and powerless, sat on a marble balcony, overlooking the garden. Below, an archi-child played with a human child. They laughed. They did not understand each other. But they understood each other better than language. Beside him, Miles Tren, now a professor of history at the Galactic Strategy Academy, was silent. You could have ruled it all, Xiron said softly. Maybe that's why we didn't, Miles replied. Xiron nodded, his eyes clouded like the distant past. My ancestors would not understand this. Maybe one day, someone will say the same about us. They sat like that, no winners, no losers. There was only life going on, beyond the limits of species, of form, of prejudice. And far out there, in the darkness of an unnamed nebula, a small ship, flying the flag of peace, cut through the waves of light into the unknown. The stars are no longer watched with fear, but with hope. Fade to black. So what do you believe? Was Earth's survival pure luck, or something more? Could humanity really be the galaxy's greatest anomaly, its greatest threat, or its greatest hope? Tell us what you think in the comments below. Do you believe a spark like this could truly exist? And if it does, are we ready for what comes next? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this journey with fellow seekers of the unknown. Until next time, keep watching the skies.